CRO has been at the center of a ton of controversy recently following their decision to remint 70 billion CRO tokens that were burned back in 2021. Now, the justification for this reminting of the 70 billion CRO was for the Cronos strategic reserve that Crypto.com is putting in place to fund a bunch of different initiatives across the Crypto.com and Cronos ecosystems. Now, in today's episode of the Everything Crypto Show, I want to talk about a statement that was made on Twitter because we have finally gotten confirmation that there will be some sort of release talking about what they are planning to do to further boost the growth of Crypto.com, Cronos, and their native altcoin CRO. So we're going to break all that down in today's video, as well as give you guys an update on the price action for this altcoin to wrap things up. Now, before we hop into the content, just a friendly reminder that I am not a financial advisor, nor do I offer any sort of financial advice on YouTube. I am simply here for your crypto news and entertainment purposes. And if you do find the videos informative and entertaining, please consider hitting that sub and like button. And I appreciate all the support on the channel. You guys are absolutely amazing. So without further ado, we are going to get right into today's altcoin discussion. But before we do that, I do want to provide a general market overview as we typically do, especially because we are coming up on 1 month from the local bottom that we saw for the markets back here on April 7th. And we did post this on Twitter because I was publicly buying Bitcoin. I spoke about SUI and Deep as well on April 7th when we saw peak fear over the tariffs. And I basically said, don't forget who was buying the fear publicly while others were pretending to be tariff experts and calling for 50 to 60K Bitcoin. Now, from the April 7th bottom, we've seen Bitcoin up about 27%, SUI up 100%, and Deep up 300%. So this is why we ignored the noise and buy the fear. And if you don't follow us on Twitter, please feel free to do so, as that is where you are going to be able to see our buys and sells in real time. Obviously, I can post that a lot faster on Twitter or X than I can post a video on YouTube. So why were we so comfortable and optimistic about buying on April 7th? Well, if we ignore all the noise, which, can be difficult at times as everybody is talking about tariffs, if you ignore the noise and look at the charts, okay, Bitcoin was, in my opinion, just completing a bull market pullback, a very similar move to what it made back in 2024. And that's why I only have one indicator on this chart at the moment for Bitcoin, and that is the 50-week moving average. Now, in my opinion, the 50-week moving average has been the single best indicator for Bitcoin bottoms throughout this entire bull market. And so I do just like to keep the charts clean, keep them simple, and use the indicators that have been the most effective throughout this cycle. So what did we see from Bitcoin last year? Well, we saw Bitcoin top out early in the year at about 73.5K. We saw a 31.5% correction down to about 50K, where Bitcoin bounced off of the 50-week moving average. And then from there, we actually saw Bitcoin effectively rally about 117% up to the most recent all-time high at about 109.5K. Now, after we saw Bitcoin make that most recent all-time high, what did we see from Bitcoin this past couple of months? We saw Bitcoin top out early in the year. We saw a 31.5% correction down to the 50-week moving average. And then boom, we have seen Bitcoin continue on its way higher from here. So if you ignore the noise and look at the charts, you're going to see what, in my opinion, has just been a very textbook bull market pullback. And so far, Bitcoin has reacted really positively to this bounce off of the 50-week, up 27%, and in my opinion, headed back up to the $100,000 zone. So Bitcoin looking really good here. If the markets do reverse and if we do see some sort of a pullback, I will be looking for Bitcoin to hold the 91.5K region as an area of support. If we take a look at the 91.5K level, which is the top level right over here on the charts, you're going to to notice that pretty much every single time Bitcoin, ever since breaking out above 91.5K, Bitcoin has back tested it multiple times as support. Okay, we saw it over here, we saw it over here, we saw it over here again. This was in February during that massive liquidation event. And then you can see here that after Bitcoin actually broke below 91.5K, it did go on to validate it as an area of resistance. So prior support flipped into resistance, and now we are back above it. So looking for Bitcoin to actually hold this 91.5K zone as support. So that is what I'm looking for when it comes to the general market overview. Now I do want to hop into the altcoin specific news, and we are going to be talking about CRO coin in today's video. So CRO coin, as mentioned at the beginning of the video, has been at the center of a ton of controversy lately on crypto Twitter and within the community. For some context, back in 2021, Crypto.com actually burned 70 billion CRO tokens, reducing the supply from 100 billion down to 30 billion, okay? And if we actually take a look at the reaction to this burn for CRO, let me go ahead and put us on a log scale over here. So the burn was announced basically at some point in early to mid-February, and you can see there was a massive positive reaction based on this initial burn. Now, what we have seen from the Crypto.com team this year is effectively going back on that initial 70 billion burn as they passed a proposal to reissue 70 billion CRO into the supply over a 5-year period. Now, on the initial announcement that they were doing this, there was a lot of people questioning the profitability of Crypto.com, basically saying, you know, oh, do they need to remint this CRO to actually continue to fund operations? And we saw the Crypto.com CEO speak out on this, effectively saying that they made about $1 billion in gross profit to reinvest in the growth of the platform. And then the question to this was, you know, if you made $1 billion in profit, why not reinvest some of that into CRO to help burn tokens and take them off of the market instead of, you know, basically diluting the supply further to raise more capital for operations? So yeah, that response there kind of left the community upset about that as well. So just a bunch of controversy surrounding this, and yeah, you can see here in the initial post they talk about what they are planning to do with this Cronos strategic reserve. But they're going to talk about it pretty vaguely, right? You know, capture institutional adoption through Cronos ETFs, onboard developers onto Cronos, remove complexity of blockchains to retail users with AI-powered dApps, reach billions of non-crypto users through stocks and banking product expansion, but no sort of concrete, you know, dates or exactly what is going to be going on. And I think that's been the biggest problem within the Crypto.com community is just the vagueness around it so far, and the fact that we actually don't have any concrete plan. So we saw this tweet over here. Not here to FUD CRO, but it's clear Cronos chain had no actionable plan in place. An event that have a massive impact on holders. And then we basically saw them saying here, you know, so this was Emily Sit on the Cronos team. She says, in my opinion, it's better to work quietly in the background until you achieve results, rather than being loud about what you're working on and risking criticism for any shortcomings. Anyways, basically, we see Crypto West ask for an AMA. Emily says, let's at least have a solid plan before the AMA. And then we saw Merkle speak out here. This is the Cronos lead. He says, I believe there was a general statement applied to a different context. Agree that AMA is due, and we will schedule it before the end of the month. A few exciting initiatives are being finalized as we speak, referencing the high-level plans again, especially paragraph number 3. So in my opinion, really good response from the Cronos team here, basically saying that yes, they are scheduling an AMA, and they were just looking to finalize a couple of initiatives before holding an AMA to talk about what this Cronos strategic reserve will be put towards, okay? And he does reference the third section of this article in his tweet, so we're going to read that out and maybe theorize on what they could be talking about. So One of the most exciting parts of the roadmap is connecting CRO to the institutional liquidity pools through Cronos ETFs. The Bitcoin ETF has been the fastest growing ETF of all time, attracting more than 100 billion USD since its launch in January of 2024, securing a position among the top 10 protocols and achieving US ETF approval will be essential to drive institutional adoption of CRO. Making America the world capital of crypto will ensure the successful execution of the Cronos roadmap. Hence, we are proposing that the community vote on the creation of a Cronos Strategic Reserve, a reversal of the February 2021 token burn, to support this ambition. So they talk in the post here about basically pushing to make Cronos a top 10 protocol once again. Cronos was formerly a top 10 chain in terms of the total value locked and currently is sitting in 19th place, so it is sitting within the top 20 chains, but they are looking to once again bring this back into the top 10. So let me know what you think in the comments down below about how this has been handled, what you are looking for out of the Cronos Strategic Reserve, and as always, I will keep you guys updated on the latest and most important news whenever we do get any sort of confirmation on an AMA, hopefully to bring a lot of clarity on what they are planning to do with this newly minted CRO. Now, to wrap things up, I do want to take a look at the price action for this altcoin. And you can actually see here, if we take a look at the more recent price action, that CRO does look like it is coiling up once again and making its way back up to the 10-cent level. Now, 10 cents, in my opinion, is the most important area for CRO. It is one that we reference a lot on the channel. And if we take a look at the prior price action, I think it really speaks to why I put so much emphasis on this level. So let's take a look here at the first kind of bull cycle and the bear market year for CRO. Okay, you're going to see here that in 2021, 10 cents did act as a strong area of support for this altcoin before it went on that run up to all-time highs at 96 cents. So that was about an 860% rally from that 10-cent zone. And then we saw in the bear market year that 10 cents was actually holding as a strong area of support until we saw the collapse of FTX, a lot of FUD targeted towards Crypto.com, which did lead CRO to this bear market bottom of about 5.5 cents, 5 cents, which came in late 2023, so about a year later after this initial decline from the 10-cent level. Now, what did we see after that? We saw CRO go ahead and run back to the upside. And just like we talked about, on Bitcoin, that 91.5K flipping from support into resistance, we see a similar thing here where basically CRO had flipped this 10-cent level into an area of resistance, unable to get above it, pulling back, and then boom, breaking out above, pulling back, getting rejected at the 10-cent level once here on the weekly candle, boom, breaking back out above, pulling back once again, and here we can see CRO is similarly to this past time here where it broke down below 10 cents. It is basically trying to get above it again, already facing resistance here on a couple of weekly candles. So what I'm really looking for is CRO to make its way above the 10-cent level, and to me, that is the most important area for the price action at the moment. If we do see some sort of reversal in the markets, one thing I will be looking for from CRO is going to just be for it to hold this 7-cent zone, which has consistently acted as support for this altcoin after these major rallies and then pullbacks. So on that note, I hope you all enjoyed the content in today's video. I hope you are all staying happy, safe, and healthy, and I hope to catch you in the next one. Peace out for now.